Have you ever had someone in your life who just doesn't like you? You didn't do anything to them. You barely even know them. But somehow, you can feel it. They're cold, distant, and it starts messing with your head. Did I say something? Did I do something wrong? What's their problem with me? So you replay every conversation, every joke, every interaction, trying to find a mistake that probably doesn't even exist. Here's what everyone tells you. Just ignore them. Be extra kind. Eventually, they'll warm up. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it doesn't matter how kind you are. Because when someone seems to dislike you for no obvious reason, there usually is a reason. It's just not always the reason you think. And here's the strange part. People who react this way often follow the same patterns. Not because every person is the same, but because human psychology tends to repeat itself. Today, I'm going to show you 5 specific behaviors that often reveal what's really happening beneath the surface. Some of these signs are obvious. Others are almost invisible. But the 5th one is the one almost everyone misses. And once you notice it, you'll never look at certain people the same way again. But before we get there, you need to understand one thing. Because without it, none of the rest will make sense. When someone treats you differently, your brain immediately starts searching for an explanation. That's what the human mind does. It wants certainty. It wants answers. So you naturally assume, it must be something I did. But what if it isn't? What if the real reason has less to do with your actions and more to do with what you represent? Maybe your confidence reminds them of something they're struggling to find in themselves. Maybe your success triggers uncomfortable comparisons. Maybe your personality simply clashes with theirs. Or maybe they're fighting battles you'll never know about. Whatever the reason, one thing is true. People often reveal what's happening inside them through the way they treat others. And when those emotions aren't dealt with, they usually show up in predictable ways. That's why understanding these behaviors matters. Not so you can judge people, but so you stop blaming yourself for things that may have never been your fault to begin with. Now, let's start with the first behavior. But don't let that fool you. The 4th behavior is far more damaging. And by the time we get there, you'll understand why.
If you are new to that channel, then subscribe and like before moving up in the video.
Number 1, they're friendly with everyone except you. This is usually the first sign. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Watch how they treat other people. They're smiling, laughing, making conversation. They seem relaxed, comfortable, even welcoming. Then you walk into the room, and almost instantly, something changes. The smile fades. The energy shifts. Their answers become shorter. Sometimes they suddenly get busy. Sometimes they walk away. Sometimes they barely acknowledge you're even there. And you're left wondering, what just happened? Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they're tired. Maybe you're imagining things. Once, that could be true. Twice, still possible. But when it happens every single time, and only with you, it stops looking like a coincidence. This is what psychologists sometimes describe as selective social distancing. Instead of openly confronting someone, they create emotional distance. It's quieter, more subtle, and much harder to call out. Now, does this automatically mean they hate you? No. People become distant for all kinds of reasons. Stress, anxiety, personality differences. But when someone is warm with almost everyone else and consistently cold only toward you, it's worth paying attention because patterns tell a much bigger story than isolated moments. Here's where most people make a mistake. They start trying harder. They become extra nice. They give more compliments. They try to earn that person's approval. But here's the problem. Approval that has to be chased rarely feels genuine when it's finally given. Sometimes, the more you chase someone's acceptance, the more power you hand them. Instead of asking, how do I make them like me? Ask yourself, why am I working so hard for the approval of someone who has shown me so little respect? That question changes everything. But if you think this behavior is obvious, the next one is much more subtle. In fact, most people experience it without ever realizing what's actually happening. Number 2, they avoid eye contact with you. This one is easy to miss. Because nothing dramatic, no argument, no insults, no confrontation, just absence. Imagine you're sitting in a group conversation. Someone tells a story. Everyone's engaged. People are making eye contact, listening, reacting. Then you start speaking, and suddenly, their attention disappears. They check their phone, look across the room, adjust something on the table, anything except looking at you. Eye contact is one of the strongest forms of nonverbal communication. It tells another person, I see you. I'm listening. That's why the lack of it feels so uncomfortable. Of course, some people naturally avoid eye contact. They're shy, they're anxious, or they're simply uncomfortable in social situations. But here's the important question. Do they avoid everyone, or only you? If they comfortably connect with everyone else, yet repeatedly disconnect the moment you begin speaking, their behavior may be communicating emotional distance without saying a single word. And over time, those small moments begin to affect you. You speak less, question yourself more. You start wondering if you're somehow the problem. But remember this, someone refusing to connect with you doesn't determine your value. It only reveals the state of that relationship. And what happens next can be even more damaging, because the third behavior doesn't just ignore your presence. It slowly makes you question your own voice. Number 3, they dismiss your ideas. This happens all the time, especially at work, in meetings, or even in a group of friends. You say something, a good idea, a thoughtful opinion, or maybe you answer a question. Silence. Nobody reacts. Nobody responds. It's almost like you never spoke. Then, 5 minutes later, someone else says almost the exact same thing. Suddenly, everyone loves it. That's a great idea. Exactly what I was thinking. We should definitely do that. And you're sitting there thinking, I literally just said that. Once? Maybe people genuinely didn't hear you. It happens. Twice. Still possible. But when the same person repeatedly ignores your ideas, talks over you, or only acknowledges your point after someone else repeats it, a pattern starts to emerge. Psychologists sometimes describe this as social invalidation. Whether it's intentional or unconscious, the message feels the same. And over time, that message becomes dangerous. Not because it's true, but because you slowly begin believing it. You stop speaking up. You second-guess your ideas. You wonder if maybe you're just not smart enough. But that's exactly why this behavior can be so damaging. It doesn't silence you overnight. It silences you, one small moment at a time. Never confuse being ignored with having nothing valuable to say. Some of the best ideas in history were ignored before they were accepted. But if dismissing your ideas isn't enough, some people take it one step further, because the next behavior doesn't just affect how they see you. It affects how everyone else sees you. Number 4, they talk about you when you're not around. This one is different, because you usually don't witness it yourself. You hear about it later. A friend casually mentions, someone said something about you. Nothing outrageous. Nothing you can easily defend yourself against. Just small comments. They seem nice, but something feels off. I don't know. I just can't explain it. Maybe it's just me. Notice what's happening. No evidence. No facts. Just enough uncertainty to make people wonder. That's what makes this behavior so effective. People often remember the feeling, even after they've forgotten the words. A tiny seed of doubt can quietly grow over time. Now, does every rumor mean someone secretly hates you? Of course not. People gossip for all kinds of reasons. But when the same person repeatedly makes vague comments that paint you in a negative light, it's worth paying attention, because they're no longer reacting only to you. They're shaping how other people see you. And here's the clever part. They'll often deny everything. I never said that. You're misunderstanding me. I was actually defending you. That's why this behavior is so difficult to prove. There's rarely clear evidence. Only repeated stories. Only the uncomfortable feeling that your reputation is changing without your knowledge. The good news? People who truly know your character usually judge you by experience, not by rumors. But none of these behaviors reveal as much as the final one, because no matter how well someone hides their feelings, their reaction to your success is incredibly difficult to fake. And that's where everything finally starts to make sense. Number 5, they become uncomfortable when you succeed. This is the final behavior, and in many cases, it's the hardest one to hide. You achieve something, a promotion, a new job, a personal goal you've been working toward for months. You share the good news. Most people smile. They congratulate you. They're genuinely happy for you. But one person goes strangely quiet. Their smile feels forced. Their congratulations sound rehearsed. Or they immediately try to make your achievement seem smaller. That's nice, but it wasn't that hard. A lot of people do that. It's not really a big deal. Why? For someone who's secure in themselves, your success doesn't take anything away from them. It can even inspire them. But for someone who's constantly comparing themselves to others, your progress can become an uncomfortable reminder of where they believe they should be. That doesn't mean everyone who reacts awkwardly is jealous. People express emotions differently. But when someone consistently struggles to celebrate your wins, while celebrating everyone else's, the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. Sometimes, the problem isn't your success. It's what your success reminds them of. And that brings us to the real question, the psychology behind it. Human beings naturally compare themselves to other people. Sometimes those comparisons motivate us. Sometimes they make us uncomfortable. Imagine looking into a mirror, not to see your face, but to see every goal you haven't reached, every opportunity you missed, every insecurity you've tried to ignore. Now imagine meeting someone who seems to represent those very things. Confidence, growth, discipline, happiness. Without saying a single word, they become a reminder, not because they're trying to, but simply because they exist. Psychologists call this social comparison. It's something we all experience to some degree. For some people, it becomes motivation. For others, it becomes resentment. That's why it's impossible to know exactly what's happening inside another person's mind. Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they're struggling. Maybe they're dealing with something you'll never see. But one thing is certain. You're not responsible for carrying someone else's emotional burden. So, what should you do? First, stop chasing approval. Not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. The moment you stop needing validation from people who refuse to give it, you take your power back. Second, don't make their opinion your identity. Someone else's cold behavior doesn't decide your worth. It never has, and it never will. Third, keep becoming the person you want to become. Keep learning. Keep growing. Keep succeeding. Not to prove anyone wrong, but because your future matters more than their opinion. Never shrink yourself just to make someone else comfortable. The people who genuinely care about you won't ask you to become smaller. And the people who want you to become smaller probably aren't the people you should be trying to impress. So the next time someone seems to dislike you for no obvious reason, don't immediately blame yourself. Look for the pattern. Are they warm with everyone except you? Do they avoid connecting with you? Do they dismiss your ideas? Do they quietly damage your reputation? Do they struggle to celebrate your success? One behavior alone doesn't tell the whole story. But when several of them appear together, they can reveal far more than words ever could. And here's the most important thing to remember. You can't control how other people feel about you, but you can control how much power you give those feelings. The moment you stop chasing acceptance is often the moment you finally find peace. If this video gave you a new perspective, let me know in the comments which behavior stood out to you the most. And if you enjoy learning about psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns behind everyday interactions, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.